have this feeling anytime you choose.
Hello everyone once again and welcome back to Utopia. So the other day I am talking with my parents, I'm telling them how my day was, the things I did and whatnot, and my dad goes and says, "But hey son, I didn't know you have to do so many things. I thought anesthesia was just like you put an injection and then you go and read a bit." Obviously my dad has no idea about medicine, but we can't really judge him. I also really didn't know what anesthesia was all about until I really started working. Many people actually think that all you do is actually giving the injection, intubating, and then doing nothing and looking at your phone for 2 hours. And so, since I've been working a while already and I got to see the different parts of anesthesia there is, and I felt like making a video about it and just explaining what we actually do, how does a normal day in anesthesia look like, and main pros and cons about working in anesthesia, just in case you are considering. So first of all, one thing needs to be made very clear about anesthesia. Anesthesia is not only working in the operating room making the anesthesia by the patients. For the last 30 years, anesthesiology has been growing and growing, eating other departments and making it his. And so these are the main branches of anesthesia. First, the intensive care unit. Even though any doctor can specialize as an intensive care unit professional, anesthesiologists are normally the ones that specialize there. The reason is because many of the patients are already intubated and patients are critical, which is one of the specialties of anesthesia, just handling these critical situations. In many countries, in order to become an anesthesiologist professional, a Facharzt, you need to rotate through intensive care unit. And in many hospitals, the intensive care unit belongs to the anesthesiology department. Second, ambulance and emergency medicine. When I say ambulance, I don't mean in the hospital and the ambulance, the patients that come. I mean literally inside the ambulance. And once again, any doctor can specialize in this, but it is the anesthesiologists, the one that ride the ambulance more often. This is once again because of the same reason. There might be these acute emergency situations in which the anesthesiologist is very well prepared for. Let me give you an example. If there is a doctor that doesn't really have to deal with acute situations from A, B, C, D, E, doesn't have to deal with A and B or even C. For example, say an urologist. The urologist might go in the ambulance and might do a very good job and if he or she is very well trained. But sometimes you get these situations, these patients that need a acute and an emergency intubation plus reanimation, and the urologist, even if he's very good, doesn't have to deal with this problem very often, and the chances are that an anesthesiologist might be a bit more ready in order to deal with these situations. To be fair, also the surgeons and the internal medicine doctors are very good emergency doctors because the surgeons do deal with bleeding and with C all of the time, and internal diseases doctors deal with A and B also very often. Once again, in many countries it is obligatory to go through emergency medicine if you want to become a Facharzt in anesthesiology. In my hospital, for example, my boss is already forcing me, is already pressing me to do the course, to get the diploma and start riding the ambulance. Third, pain therapy. As you might expect in anesthesia, since we deal with opiates all of the time, we know rather well which opiates should be used for one occasions or for other, or what kind of pain medications, which is not opiates, is to be used. Not all of the hospitals have a sub-department of pain therapy inside anesthesia, but all of the hospitals do have at least one anesthesiologist who does a round every day and checks on the pain by the patients, especially the patients after an operation. Pain therapy can subspecialize into chronic pain therapy, sport medicine, pain therapy, and palliative medicine. And at last, 4, you have anesthesia in the operating room. Whether it's a heart operation, lung operation, or just typical appendix operation, you as anesthesiologist have to start the anesthesia that is required before the operation, during the operation, start there and check the medication and change the medication for the patient and the surgeon needs, and of course after the operation, extubation and all of that. And this includes all types of anesthesia, not just general anesthesia. You can also operate patients which are awake, being the most famous case, for example, the cesarean section by pregnant ladies with a spinal anesthesia. Now, seeing the huge variety of things that can be done inside anesthesia, how the normal day looks like really depends on which department you are rotating in. First of all, if you are doing operations, it also depends on operations of what. There is a huge difference between cardiac operations, lung operations, and say gynecological operations, which are much easier. You can have a day full of appendixes in which you just lay down and do basically nothing. It's quite boring, especially with years and years. And there are difficult operations in which you really have to work hard in order to save the patient. Then you have the ICU, which, you guessed it, intensive is the patient care and intensive you shall work. I am talking about non-stop transfusions, patients with shock, reanimations, emergency intubations, and that kind of stuff. Then you have the ambulance work, in which you never know. You might be the whole time doing nothing in the hospital, just waiting for a call. You might have very easy patients and just be chilling most of the day, and you might have polytraumas and dying patients, you never know. And at last is the pain therapy. Pain therapy is much more chill. You just go around just like if you were an internal diseases doctor, just talk about your patients, talk with them, just check the medication. It's much more relaxed, and there is no acute situations like you are used to in the other sides of anesthesia. Now, if you are thinking about becoming an anesthesiologist, you need to, of course, count the pros and the cons. When it comes to pros, first of all, you have a lot of job offers. This is because, like I said, you need to work in the intensive care unit, you need to work in the operating room, and there is a huge need for anesthesiologists in Germany. On top of that, one of the main pros is no documentation. Zero documentation. You can forget about writing for hours in front of the computer. You have to write shortly what you did in a couple of sentences, tops a page, no more. On top of that, anesthesia is known to be a rather chill specialty, but it's not as chill as, for example, ophthalmology, dermatology, or of course, radiology. Now, when it comes to the cons, there is one main thing you need to keep in mind. Anesthesia is specialized in these acute critical situations. We are talking about a patient who is not breathing, who you need to intubate and do a reanimation or whatever in matter of minutes or seconds. We are talking about doing something with your hands in a matter of seconds. If you do it wrong, the patient dies. It's a lot of pressure on your shoulders, and you need to think about it. You need to keep in mind whether you want or can handle that pressure. In other specialties, if something doesn't work out, if you don't really know what to do, you can call your superior doctor and he or she will come in maybe 30 minutes and you will just wait. In anesthesia, something goes wrong, the patient dies in less than 5 minutes. You can call your superior doctor, he or she will not come on time. So it's a lot of pressure and you need to keep that in mind. They say anesthesia is like flying a plane. Very stressful takeoff and very stressful landing. But in the meanwhile, you can just sit down, relax, and enjoy your flight or your coffee. Now, if you already know that you want to be an anesthesiologist and you are thinking about what you should start studying with, I would recommend starting with the main drugs that anesthesiology must know. Unlike what many people think, anesthesiologists don't really use so many drugs. They use very few drugs, but the ones they use, they need to know every single detail about them. So thinking about the main 3 groups of drugs that you should give, when it comes to general anesthesia, I would say start with one inhalative general anesthesia, for example, sevoflurane, one intravenous, propofol. When it comes to muscle relaxants, one depolarizing, succinylcholine, and one not depolarizing, for example, glucuronidine. And when it comes to opiates, just start with sufentanil, which is basic typical opiate, and then you can expand. Now, it is my intention to make some videos about some medical techniques, how to put an intravenous line, how to put a central intravenous line, an arterial catheter, how to make an intubation, how to do spinal anesthesia, and also not anesthesia things related, such as how to make a pleural punction or how to make a pleural catheter. So let me know if you would like to see some of those medical techniques, and if you would like to see anything else, or if you have any questions. Like always, you can just write a comment and I will answer you. And so that has been everything for today. I hope you're doing great, and we'll see each other next time.